Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Broken Brains Monday Mental Health Tip. And that's how I pronounce tip. And the normal way, like I just did. You get both of them for the price of one. Well, I wanted to give a quick rundown of something that I talk about periodically on the program, which is mental health care when it is under the umbrella of gender affirming care for transgender individuals. Reason for that is that today is Trans Day of Visibility. This is just a little message for people who maybe aren't familiar with what's the kind of best practice when it comes to gender affirming care. A lot of people who aren't really up on, I'll say maybe not exposed to or experienced with many trans individuals or just issues of, gender dysphoria and those kinds of things. Many people don't really know, but they say a lot about it. And so there's a lot of myths and things that, and sure, anything you can come up with, somebody's probably doing it. But when people have these sort of myths about, here's a therapist who, as soon as someone walks in their room, they're like, let's get you into surgery, or here's, this or that or whatever. And that some doctor or therapist is going to make everybody do this, or even in extremes where people would say things like, oh, they're going to school and getting that surgery at school. I don't really understand that. It's never happened. And one of the ways you can tell it's never happened is, number one, because it's ridiculous. They don't do surgery in schools. But the other reason you can tell it's never happened is because if it had happened once, that specific name, date, and time would be all over the news, right? So anyway, what is gender affirming care? Well, gender dysphoria, now not being trans, but gender dysphoria is something that is diagnosable in the DSM, where we look at mental health diagnoses. Gender dysphoria means deep and abiding, discomfort to the point of depression and stress with one's, presenting gender. And particularly oftentimes this comes out in people having body dysmorphia or feeling at unease with the body that they have and some of the, the parts of the body. And if they have to interact with their body, as we all do, that it can cause lots and lots of stress. So, and here's where, I take a little issue with, I hear people say things like, well, if that's a mental health issue, then shouldn't kids get therapy instead of just being told that they're a different gender? So a couple things wrong there. Therapists don't tell someone they're a different gender. Okay. Doctors don't tell someone they're a different gender. What happens is if someone is experiencing gender dysmorphia, yes, counseling is part of that. No matter what, there's counseling and there's assessment. Now, if a person identifies themselves as a different gender than they were assigned at birth, then gender affirming care means that you don't fight with them about that. You work with them with that understanding. They are allowed and have the right to tell you that. That is the accepted best practice, best care in basically all of the medical, social work, counseling, associations, and all, the research of what seems to help people. Now, does that mean you just say, okay, fine, and now we're going to push that forever in some agenda or something? Once again, that's not what medical treatment is, okay? You're thinking more about maybe social advocacy, and I personally don't have a problem. I'm happy when people are social advocates as well, and that's a whole different thing, though. The belief that someone has the right to interpret themselves is also, is incorporated into this. You can go back to cognitive behavioral therapy and solution-focused therapy and all of those things where the principle is that the client is an expert. They are an expert of themselves. They will generally be more of an expert in themselves than anyone else in the entire world will ever be. That's very important because counseling is teamwork, working together. Now, as part of gender affirming care, without trying to convince the person one way or another, people do counseling where they will talk about, so where did you come to this conclusion? What's that been like for you? Have you talked to anyone about it yet? Have you come out or not come out? And just different things that are going to be just the standard way that you would talk about any issue in therapy. Now, if you don't like the fact that people are given the right to talk about things in therapy, that is on you. You have to try to figure out why you're so uncomfortable with that, I'd say. So all throughout, therapy and medication prescription and things like that, the symptoms of depression and anxiety are also, addressed in the treatment, of course, because why wouldn't they be? And any other mental health symptoms that are there as well. Now, with gender affirming care, as I said before, that is one of the modes of treatment that someone will go through. There's all different modes of treatment for all different kind of illnesses, mental or otherwise, however they're categorized. There's medication, there's physical therapy, there's mental health therapy, there's just all kinds of different therapies. Gender affirming care with hormone replacement therapy and sometimes puberty blockers is an accepted form of treatment for several reasons that we'll get into. And I will say, it seems to be, with the majority of people with gender dysphoria, that those things greatly impact and reduce many other mental health symptoms. If someone is suicidal, if someone is self-harming, if they have a miserable, anhedonic response where they've lost all joy in life. If you do something and those things start to dissipate and you start to do better and have more tools and emotional regulation, let's be honest, if there was a treatment for almost any other disease that had such a high result of people feeling better, that would be, everyone would be demanding it all the time for whatever. I've had several clients of mine who were going through this process who, once they started to do gender affirming care with a endocrinologist and were doing hormones and even surgical interventions and things, they started to cut down on things like use of alcohol, tobacco, other drugs, just naturally. And when asked why, especially many of these people I've known who would say, "Nah, I don't care. I'll just smoke till I die and who cares?" But the reason that they give you, if you ask them, how come you're slowing down or quitting that? Well, because now I want to live. I want to live longer. So there's a bunch of those kinds of experiences. All you have to do is know trans people to have anecdotal evidence. You can go digging for all the research you want. There's lots of indications that vast majority who go through some form of gender affirming treatment that allows them to be the expert and to pursue that, they do much better and have a great, experience with that. Now, with any kind of treatment, this is not a 100% get rid of all of the mental health symptoms in your life type of treatment. And many people like to point to that and say, well, this person still scored a high on depression. Well, this person still has a lot of anxiety or whatever. Or the one that people love to peddle out, which for some reason, if someone's autistic, people think they don't have the right to determine that they are transgendered. And so people love to throw that one out there as well. One of the many ways in which people discriminate against autists. People love also to talk about the potential side effects of hormone replacement therapy, particularly a controversial issue, which is puberty blockers. Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to get into this here, except for one thing. And this is where you need a doctor to talk to, and there's research and things that are ongoing. And is there a need for long-term research in the effects of puberty blockers? Well, yes. And are there side effects that puberty blockers might have? Once again, I don't have the research in front of me. I'm not a doctor, but I'm going to say this. I do know that when people look at possible side effects of medications, particularly if they have to do with mental or emotional health, there's no such thing as a pill that cures your depression or that will make it so that someone like me never gets hypomanic or manic ever again. No such thing as that. Are there side effects? Well, personally, I take a mood stabilizer that works very, very well, and I've never met anyone who took it who didn't say it works very, very well. Okay. However, one of the possible side effects is that a very, very small percentage of the population gets a skin rash from this medication. I have met a couple of those people over the years who have this medication and have developed a skin rash. The effects of it upon their mental health are so great that both people I know, and from what I hear, a lot of people, tried to address the skin rash with other treatments, because their quality of life was so much better. Their suicidality was cut down and just different things like that. And barring that, if that didn't work, then they could, obviously try something else. But so if you're facing the options of medication, we can't go like, well, you can have a normal, typical experience, or you can have this weird experience where there might be side effects and it's not going to cure everything all the way. That's not what we're talking about, though. When we're talking about someone who's in the depths of gender dysphoria and they're facing that frequently, daily, and just all the time, there are side effects of doing nothing. Some of the side effects could lead all the way to becoming suicidal and having physical self-harm. Now, there's a danger here. If we look at that and say, well, that's the only outcome that's bad, how about quality of life damage? How about being overwhelmed all the time and depressed and just not even wanting to live? Okay, those are also important. In fact, with mental health issues, with depression and anxiety particularly, having a greatly damaged quality of life is a lot more frequent of an outcome than actually completing suicide. I mean, that makes sense, right? The majority of people who feel suicidal do not ever complete a suicide, okay? So that's something to keep in mind, though, is that a quality of life is very, very important as well. So you have to weigh in what are the potential risks on both sides. If you're just maintaining an unhealthy status quo, something bad could very well happen. And that's not even getting into the issue of self-medication, by the way, medicating to try to deal with mental health symptoms is very, very common and will cut into someone's lifespan as well. So nothing is perfect, but let's stop comparing real life imperfect to pretend perfect, because that is not. That's comparing apples and mountain tops, okay? Just not even this. They're not even both fruit. I am a deep believer in the fact that whenever someone opens up about who they are and tries to realize a greater authenticity in their life, that not only is it healthy for them, but it makes the world a better place. I believe in diversity and inclusion and all those things. Not a shocker if you've ever listened to the show before, but I believe very strongly that if we do not have a chance to take advantage of all the people around us and who they really are, then we are selling ourselves short. We are cutting more authentic, happy, mentally well people out of our community by not allowing them to become better and to heal and those kinds of things. And so they may be around, but they are suffering, and we are also suffering the loss of that person. Instead of thinking like, oh, isn't this hard when someone tells me that they have a different identity than I thought? Instead of obsessing on that, maybe you should think about what a wonderful aspect of this person's life that you're going to get to understand. And the fact that they trust you. I mean, I think that should inspire some sort of gratitude in the person who is receiving the news. When someone comes out to me, I should be grateful that they feel safe enough with me and that they want me to be part of their life and to know about this journey that they're going on. So just some things to think about. I know it's nothing earth-shattering if you are like-minded, or I will just say, though, if you're someone who is kind of sitting there like, I don't know about the risks of this, risks of that, I would just invite you, in connection with whatever other research, if it's a family member of yours or your child and you're talking to the doctor and you're trying to make decisions, you don't forget to evaluate what are the potential risks of just maintaining an unhealthy status quo. And what's going to happen, right? If we do that, we need to weigh out those potential consequences as well. This is the last day of March. I'm going to go ahead and give you the new information. I just told the Patreon people this last week for the history episode, but the highlighted charity that we're going to be focused on next month is a nonprofit in Atlanta, Georgia, known as Transcending Boundaries Atlanta. This is an organization that specializes in working with Black transgender individuals and focused on the fact that they are disproportionately get into different legal issues, as well as are either accused or charged with crimes, and also have other legal issues that come up when it comes to discrimination with housing and jobs and just other things like that. They work with advocacy and also individuals in helping them to resolve legal issues. There's also a lot of legal issues involved in just the transitioning process, by the way, especially a little bit more murky nowadays than it was even pretty recently ago. So this is a really cool program, transcendingbarriersatl.org. transcendingbarriersatl.org is the website you can go to. Also, if anyone joins our Patreon this month, 50% of your donation will go to Transcending Barriers for the life of your membership. In other words, month after month, 50% of your donation will go there, unless you specify the desire to change to one of our other charities of focus, which you can always do as well. But 50% of what you give will always go to one of our monthly highlighted charities. And that's a big fun thing that I get to do when y'all share things with me. Got a wonderful new episode coming out tomorrow and with an interview. And so I predict you will all enjoy that. And if you don't, then I don't know. Sorry. I don't know what to tell you, but I think you will. All right. Everybody have a great day and a great week. We'll see you again soon.